Welcome back to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. Today we're going to get into adoption in the Hispanic community. We're lucky enough to be joined by Myra, who works in our marketing department, and she's going to share her experience being Colombian and kind of how adoption is viewed within her community. So welcome, Myra.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You come behind the scenes from our lovely marketing department to just kind of share what your experience has been with adoption. So first, tell us a little bit about your experience working in the adoption field and how your community has viewed adoption.
Yeah, so before working at Adoptions from the Heart, I really didn't have any connections to adoption other than some family members. I can't speak for the whole community, but I can speak to my experience of how adoption is viewed in our community. It is very taboo. It's still something that people don't speak about, don't talk about. It's kind of like people go away and they come back with a child, and then it's not really spoken. It's something that we know it happens, but it's not okay for it to happen. So I know there's not many resources, there's not many things that we talk about. It's not really spoken in our families or communities.
So if a woman is facing an unplanned pregnancy and she is contemplating adoption, like how would her family react if she shared that, or would she not share that?
I would say they will probably not share that at first, but if they do, it would be kind of like your aunt can take care of it, your cousin can take care of it. It's never like adoption outside of your family. It's not very ethical. It's very behind the scenes kind of like arrangements between adoptive parents and the expectant mother by themselves without a presence of an agency.
Gotcha. So it's just not really talked about.
Yes.
Within Hispanic culture. Yeah, I know here at the agency as social workers, oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes in the Hispanic culture, it's very tight-knit, right? Somebody will step up and help care for a baby or participate in the support of child. So we find often that there's a lot of pressure from family in Hispanic cultures to not place child for adoption.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about like it stays in the family, and you can be raised by your grandparents, your uncles, your aunts, but it's not really talked about if that happens. There's not many cases of like people just openly talking about making an adoption plan.
Sure. Now, I know your role here at the agency is more so marketing, but when you stepped into this role and shared with your family and friends what you do here, and kind of what we do here in terms of adoption, did you get any feedback? Like, I'm curious, were they like, oh, what's that about? Or tell me more about open adoption?
Yeah, open adoption wasn't even in their vocabulary, so it was very like I had to explain what open adoption was, and then I had to like talk about what exactly it is, because it's always seen as the right of the adoptive parents, but it's never like you think about it like, okay, so, oh, that's beautiful for the child, that's beautiful for the family that they're getting a child, but they never understood the birth parent part of it. It's always very adoptive parent centric. So having to explain that to them and kind of understanding, and now they know and they understand what it is, but back then when I first started, it was hard for them to understand open adoption.
Sure. I remember years ago I worked with a client who was from Guatemala, and she didn't speak English. She had other children that she was parenting, and when she was facing this unplanned pregnancy and ultimately decided on adoption, she actually completely left her community and wanted to go somewhere else to have the baby because she was so worried about how people in her life would perceive her and her choice. And it was hard to see that because she had to leave everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had an experience of a birth mom. I've seen it on the other side, but I know that in my experience, in my family, I don't know I have a cousin who is adopted. Wouldn't know anything about his birth parents, so it's never talked about. It was always about like, oh, your aunt went away and she came back and now has a baby. I can assure you that probably for that woman, she did not have any support, and that's probably the only option she could do when she did not get any help other than that.
Absolutely. So recently we actually had you participate. You kind of came from behind the scenes of marketing and you helped us. Myra was kind enough to be a translator for us when we were working with another client. Tell me how you felt kind of crossing that line and really seeing what a birth parent goes through and having her share with you how she was feeling after she placed her child for adoption?
At first, I was really nervous because I wanted to make sure that I was saying the right things. And I was like, do I even know enough about adoption to talk about it? But of course I do. And learning here, I've learned a lot. And I was able to see how much I've learned from Adoptions from the Heart by having those conversations. So I was nervous, but it was a great experience to be able to see what social workers have to do. I mean, I was the translator, but at the same time, I got to talk to them one-to-one and go over their experience and their feelings and what they were going through. So it was really good to see the other way and see the support that expecting parents get when they come here.
Sure. Well, and I know for me, because I've been working with you the last couple of years, I was happy to see you kind of get the feel for what a birth parent goes through, because I imagine when you're writing a story and interviewing somebody, it's very different than when you actually are sitting and calling or texting with that person and you have them crying that, you know, they feel lost and they're grieving the loss of their child. Very different experience. So I was really happy to let you have that moment of feeling that.
Yeah, definitely. It was completely different. Like, you could actually, I felt like I could relate to them and what they were saying. The expectant mother did not have any support from her community, and she was thinking about not going through the process because of that, because when she told people about it, they were all upset and they were saying that she wasn't a good person for doing that. And that's where I think that, like, the Hispanic community don't really understand what it's like. They thought that she was just giving her child away to anyone, and it wasn't like a whole process that she went and she picked the family and everything. So it was a good way for me to relate to her, and I could be kind of like a big sister and speak to her to, like, hey, like, I understand what you're going through, because I know what it's like to be in the Hispanic community, and I know the taboo, like, I know adoption is taboo in our community. So it was good to see the other side, but also to be able to relate to her and to talk to her about her options because of the things that I've learned from working here.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and your role as marketing manager is so important to kind of spreading awareness about what we do here at the agency. Do you have any advice of, like, where we can go with this so that we can try to spread more awareness, specifically in Hispanic communities, so that they understand what open adoption is?
I mean, I think having people that speak the language is the first thing, and someone that is in the culture so they understand this thing. So I think being able to have someone that can speak to a birth mother in their language tells them, because sometimes these women don't speak English, so you have to translate, and then even the things when you translate them, they don't sound the same. I had that coming up when I was translating. I'm like, I don't even know if this is how you say it in Spanish, but I think it is, because you don't talk about those things. So I think having people that know the experience and know the culture and can talk to someone about it in their language is very important. But also, like, reaching out to resources and places that have, like, community centers for Hispanic community, and just giving them the resources that they need. And I think just, like, making sure that we are reaching out to those places and to people in that community and utilizing the same clients that speak Spanish to maybe be able to share their experience and what they went through, and make sure that, you know, like, other people can know about what we do, and that it doesn't have to be the way that it's been.
Well, and it's similar to how the birth parent experience, like, 30 years ago is very different in terms of what people know now, right? So it's kind of similar to that in the sense of the more that women and men are courageous enough to kind of share their story, and even if it's just sharing it with a fellow friend who is facing an unplanned pregnancy and potentially considering adoption, like sharing her experience of what it was like to call Adoptions from the Heart, choose a family, have open adoption, or have the ability to have openness in the future, like, that helps, because it can be scary, especially if you're not only from a different, like, different language, different culture. Everything is very different. So it can be scary and overwhelming being here and not knowing really what your rights are in terms of your planning. Yeah. So definitely can feel you on that.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you. We are happy that we can just kind of share more about the Hispanic community. And of course, you can't speak for everybody, but Myra's been able to share her experience, and we just hope to continue to spread awareness. So thank you so much, and tune in next week.